Hello and welcome to session number 3 of the online session for HRM. First of all, my apologies. My video that I currently made was way too big to process. It took me up to like 3 to 4 hours to process. When it was uploading, it took too long. So I did the reasonable thing. I redid the whole thing and, I try to cut some corners in terms of imagery and all that and see where it takes me over there. Anyways, in this session, I've also changed a little bit of the format. You have a class this week, Friday, face-to-face. That's, I don't know, whatever. And the week after, we have our spring break. So currently, no assignment. I'll repeat, once again, there is an assignment online, which is related to, okay, I'm going to date it. We are 2019 HRM. So if I ever repeat this session, I just want you to know it's not for 2020 or whatsoever. The students are 2019 HRM. There is a report box that was created initially, and that was not a real assignment, but I wasn't able to delete it. So don't worry about it. We'll work things out. I'll explain better when you come back. Anyways, let's proceed further for personal planning and recruiting. I'll try to keep this limited to 35 minutes, okay? And I'll upload the slides separately as well. There are notes within it. I will try to extract the chapter for the PDF version if I can. If not, don't worry about it, okay? The notes should be enough from the slide itself. Moving ahead, let's talk about personal planning and recruiting. The learning objectives, we will cover only some learning objectives. This second part, I will do that in class, okay? So there are actually 60 slides, but I'm only doing half of them right now, okay? Moving ahead, next slide. So we're going to talk about the main techniques used in employment planning and forecasting, which is not very difficult, to be very honest. Oops, I'm going to drink some water. I get thirsty from time to time. I'm a human being as well. So let us examine some of the principles of recruitment, which are pretty easy because when you're designing your, I would say, candidature for a job, it starts actually from forecasting. When I say forecasting, let's say you have a company, or if you don't even have a company, you say somebody has to fill a position in terms of skill sets, in terms of talent, and where we're going to find these people. How much are we going to pay them? How will we engage with them? How will we delegate work to them? How will we remunerate them? How will we reward them? All of this starts with planning and forecasting. Afterward, we start the process of collecting CVs, resumes, or even when we collect those things, we go through a filtering process. So initially, I'll use my highlighter over here. We go for this part, okay? We build a pool of candidates that we can maybe interview or screen out. And the candidature process, all the way from becoming a valid applicant to even getting recruited, we drop out a lot of the candidates that don't fit our requirement because we have a limited number of people we can hire. So first of all, we say, hey, you know what? You're supposed to fill out a form. So maybe a form, or maybe they will fill out some sort of test, they'll give an exam, and we go through the process. Then we use other selection tools to screen out applicants, maybe panel interviews, maybe we'll use maybe a test, or we will ask them to do some sort of work for us, or maybe even a challenge. Then once that is done, we go through the many interview processes. HR can be involved, or managers can be involved in the interviews. Sometimes some companies even have up to 10 interviews for very, I would say, delicate positions such as financials, or a position where the companies will expose their secrets, or I would say confidentiality in terms of product management and new development to the candidate. So throughout the whole process, it's a looping thing sometimes. It just doesn't happen straight away, and then maybe you go back to finding the new candidate. And when they become an employee, the next part is orientation and induction. So I'll go through these processes one by one. Okay, let's start with workforce planning. Okay, and this is a process of deciding what positions the firm will have to fill and how to fill them. Its aim is to identify and address the gaps between the employer's workforce today and its projected workforce needs for tomorrow. The planning should precede recruitment and selection, meaning if you things time will change. Currently, for example, a lot of my students who are in marketing, I keep telling them the same thing over and over again. You guys need to learn SEO, you need to learn UI, UX, a little bit of data management. The reason for that, the market is evolving and more companies are demanding these type of jobs because even software is evolving. Initially, if you've done Microsoft Office 2013, you should do Office 365 because the rules have changed, the policies are changing, the softwares are changing, communication methodology is changing as well. So the companies, when they sit down, they also look at schools and what type of material they're teaching, and then therefore make those sort of requests and demands that when we will fill up a position, these are the skill set that you should have. If your skill sets are above, or even if your credentials are above a certain requirement, you can ask for a better pay, or you'll become a better candidate altogether. Moving ahead. Oh, wait, what did I just do? Sorry. Next. So there's some, here, Tower Watson maps, prediction models as well. You can check out CIPD. I think it stands for Center for Information Personnel Development site. That could come in very much handy afterwards. But you really don't have to look at this much because when you do, it depends also on your region that you're in. Some countries don't have this sort of data. Okay, but generally, when they do a census in a few years or so, some universities also reveal they have what we call a graduates directory, and you can pick up those graduates directory and see what type of positions people could be interested in. Let's say, for example, the American Business School, we have at least 3 to 4 options for your graduation. You can do the Bachelor Luxury program. You go to fashion, luxury, and retail. If you're in the regular BBA program, you end up in finance, international trade, and you can be a marketer. If you do the MBA, you go towards geopolitics, communication, or entrepreneurship. So these are the type of things that can give you an idea for even as a recruiter, how do I would say societies produce workforce, or I would say talent specialists as well. Moving ahead. So let's talk about the strategic part about planning. Okay, strategic is, of course, long-term planning. So when we're going to recruit someone, we also need to induct them into the company, and we're going to train them for a long period of time. All right, moving ahead. Okay. All right, there is a case study in the book for Four Seasons, but it's not really relevant to you. However, I will give you a summary of the case study, okay? So as noted, Four Seasons builds its strategy around giving the superior customer services in Four Seasons is the hotel, right? And that requires highly motivated, and also employees have a high morale, so the employees have high motivation and high morale. Four Seasons, how can they use this as part of the recruitment practices? What to do is they encourage such motivation and morale. One way was to, fill in positions around the world with internal transfers. So within the company, they would send people to different parts of the world in Four Seasons, I would say, subsidies. And that way, people would be more encouraged to join Four Seasons Hotel as an employee. So, hey, at least I can travel the world. Okay. And in one recent year, for instance, I think they sent out around 280 employees were relocated. They were relocated from hotels in one country to another within the Four Seasons chain. And the employees loved it. Most of the young generation people love traveling, right? It gives them a chance for adventure and to see the world, and also build a career with a great hotel chain. You have a CV which says Four Seasons, that's a great stamp on your CV. You get great experience by traveling. And it's great for Four Seasons too. Why? Because the resulting high morale and motivation support for Four Seasons is part of the strategic goal for giving high customer services. This is also part, and if you studied marketing with me, I would have told you in the services marketing, we call this the service profit chain. If you train your employees and they become productive, productive employees are rewarded with benefits and perks. They become happy employees who are productive employees, treat their customers better with higher morale and higher productivity. And therefore, customers also return more often because of the employees. And therefore, you make a good profit. So Four Seasons uses this sort of recruitment practice that produces the excellent service the chain needs to achieve its strategic goals. We won't really talk about this in class, so it's not really a big deal. But let's move on to the second part, which is, sorry, forecasting personal needs. Okay, Okay, so there are a few ways to do this. We have four of them, all right, and I'll see how many I can do currently. Simply put, there's something called trend analysis, okay, and within trend analysis, please give me a minute, sorry. This is simply a study of a company's past employment needs over a period of years to predict the future needs. For example, every time you would say need to open up a new branch of McDonald's or restaurant, according you would require, let's say, maybe up to 20 people to be recruited at the lower level, and you might need two or three different floor managers depending on their time. And that becomes part of your budgeting as well. You'll need so many people. How much are you going to pay them? What sort of requirements should they have? How many languages should they speak? What sort of capability should they possess, or intelligence level, and so on and so forth. So in the longer term, managers will follow industry publications and economic forecasts closely, and they try to get a sense for the future demand. So such predictions won't be precise. That is very normal, but it should help you address the potential changes. Okay, and the basic process for forecasting personnel need is to look at your own sales revenue and profit, then estimate the size of staff required to support the sales volume. However, most managers must also take into account that these include project turnovers. Okay, projected turnover means how many people will leave, or how many people will, how the project will fare. Maybe it won't be a long-lasting project too. So it can also depend on decisions to maybe upgrade or downgrade a product or service. Maybe you need to downsize after a while. And it also depends on productivity changes. Maybe, for example, at McDonald's, we don't really have a cash register anymore. We have a computer kiosk. So that could also impact productivity improvement in the kitchen rather than just serving people at the cash counter. Okay, so the basic tools are, once again, trend analysis. I discussed that already. Ratio analysis is a forecasting technique for determining future staff needs by using ratios between, for example, sales volume and number of employees needed. Let's say, for example, at Zara or at H&M, when there's a sales season, you might want to add more temporary staff that can cater to a lot, I would say, an extended number of customers, or scaling of customers coming in. When it goes to a restaurant during peak hours, you require extra set of hands and waiters and waitresses to help you around, maybe serving clients, maybe even extra set of hands in the kitchen. That depends, okay? Scatter plot is just a graphical method used to help identify the relationship between two variables, okay? Such as, let's say, for example, you can say they can have seasonal variety for food. Let's say in certain touristic areas during the holiday season, you get more customers, and what do you call it? And let's say you can say, for example, in the evening, tourists drink more alcohol at the restaurant as compared to the afternoon. So you can plot this sort of graph out and say, okay, that means if you're going to have more, I would say, people drinking at night, maybe we need a bartender, maybe we need a sommelier or whatsoever to serve our clients. And lastly, your own judgment. A few historical trends, ratios, or even relationships will continue and change into the future. So your own judgment is needed to adjust the forecast. This is called managerial instincts as well. You're not so concerned about this, okay? But then again, now let's talk about forecasting the supply side. We have talked about demand, but in general, we should also talk about the supply side and where can we get these candidates from? How much would they like to get paid for? What should be the process of recruitment, and so on and so forth, okay? So when it comes to forecasting the supply of candidates, here is what we call a replacement charge or substituting charge for your staff members, okay? It is, let me please give a minute. In this, there's an option particularly for the firm's top position. They show that the present performance and promote ability for each position's potential replacement. So it's called a Markov analysis. This is also a method that involves creating a matrix that shows you, maybe I would say, the probability that employees in that sort of chain of command feeder positions for a key job, such as, let's say, junior engineer to senior engineer, so supervisor to director, will move from position to position. Like, they'll go up the ladder. Sometimes they'll get a promotion. Sometimes they might even leave and therefore be available to fill out key positions. Take, for example, usually when the CEO of a company is let go, fired, or retires, the acting CEO immediately is the CFO. in many banks and companies. I do not really know the reason why for that, but I'm assuming because they are, it's all to do with explanation of the financial objectives to stakeholders and shareholders. So that's why maybe the CFO becomes the acting CEO, but to fill out a key position currently. So even in your company, there are key positions that are required. For example, in a school, there has to be a teacher. Okay, if there's no teacher, that's a key position for run your business. You'll have to find a substitute very quickly. Okay, so that being explained, usually when we make organograms or organization charts, we try to represent what are the key positions and how they can be substituted very quickly. We and management also learn to create backups of ourselves. Usually when our bosses are away or manager goes away, he creates a backup and tells their backup, you are in charge until I get back, so I leave all decisions to you. That's why we have a president, we have a senior vice president, SVP, then we have an AVP, assistant vice president. Below them, you have managers and junior managers and executives and so on and so forth. That's how a chain of command is followed according to the responsibility given. Anyways, so let's talk about the forecasting supply side. And within this, we will talk about predicting workforce monitoring. So most employers review their workforce plans every year or so, but this isn't always sufficient because workforce planning, therefore, it usually involves paying continuous attention to other planning issues. And they usually what they call this is predictive workforce monitoring. And over here in this process, I would say predicting labor needs. There's a company case study in the book called Valero Energy. They created what we call a labor supply chain for improving the efficiency of workforce planning, recruiting, and of course hiring. It includes an analytical tool that predicts the labor needs based on past trends, meaning every time they have a new project in the energy sector, what sort of engineers they would have to hire, what sort of technicians, and from where, maybe they need to get some vendors in as well to be part of it. So they created something like a dashboard, like a computer dashboard system where they can see their trends and pie charts and other variables. And that shows also other components of the staffing chain, such as ads placed on job boards. How many ads have you launched on different job places, like maybe LinkedIn or maybe in the newspaper and so on and so forth, and performing according to cost, speed, and quality. So before implementing the labor supply system, it took 41 pieces of paper to bring on board an employee in more than 120 days to fill a position. Each of the hire cost them about $12,000, which is a lot of money. Okay, and so if you made it more electronic and you had a forecasting system, you could reduce it. So the new system eliminated most of the paper forms needed to hire an employee, and the time to fill the position went down from 120 days to 40 days. And the price, or I would say the cost for hiring someone new went down from 12,000 to 2,300, just because they could predict it faster, and the training time went down as well. So if you understood this part in Valero or even any other company that has an HRM system out there, their best bet is to, when there is a supply for a candidature, you have to fill out positions very swiftly, quickly, with the least amount of energy, effort, and money. Okay, and it's not easy as it seems. Okay, so next we're going to talk about matching projected labor supply and labor demand. It's a bit like economics right now. You every time you see your company scaling bigger or someone leaving or someone being fired, you got to be ready to fill that position, and there's no time for delays. So what we do is the backup planning, as is another term in HR, we call it succession planning. Just like, for example, some of you watch maybe Game of Thrones, or when a king dies, his successor must come to the throne. And who could be the successor? Usually, with some, of course, reasonably sound of mind, sound of body, prince, who's also leadership skills, okay, and who has a trust of the people. Similar in succession planning, okay, it's the same thing. It involves developing workforce plans for the company's top position. It's the ongoing process of also systematically finding and also verifying and developing leaderships to enhance performance of the company. And it entails three steps. That is, first of all, identifying what are the key positions in the company, developing candidates on the inside of the company and not from the outside, because the more you train people on the inside, you get them ready for a position that is far superior to they have currently. And also assess and select those who you think are the right for the position. Okay, next. So let me give you some examples for need or effective recruiting. Okay, so over here we assume the company authorizes to fill a position. The next step is, of course, to develop up through recruiting an applicant pool. It's not a swimming pool. It's an applicant pool. It's different types of candidates with, almost the same sort of requirements that could be suitable for a position in your company. So this recruiting means finding and, of course, attracting applicants to the position that has been opened in the company. So what we do is, first question, is we have to ask why effective recruiting is important. There's quite a few reasons for that. One is it's only two candidates apply for two openings. You may have a little choice, but to hire them, you're like, hey, there's the only ones who applied. But if 20 or more than 20 people appear, you can use techniques like interviews and screening tests to find and filter the best one out of a larger pool of candidates. Effective recruiting, usually allows a company to fill positions while their competition may have missed solid opportunity. You might get the best talent out there. For example, you fill open positions 50% faster than industry average, you're more likely to get better talent on board more quickly. So, because sometimes, even in our industry, people used to be on the probation period for too long, and they would just jump to another company with a better offer. And they said, you know what, these guys are taking too long to bring me on board. Some methods are superior to others too, depending on the job and the non-requirement issues as well, such as pay. It could be even mentality. Even the employer's brand or reputation will impact recruiting success. If I was getting hired by Google and it took 1 month to hire me, I would question their methodology. This company is not very efficient. Obviously, it is futile to recruit if the employer's reputation is that it's an awful place to work. Duh, of course, yeah, but sometimes people just need the job. But you have to be careful that you're not filling a position just for the sake of filling in positions. For many terms, it's simply much easier to just, recruit centrally now that so much recruiting is on the internet, through maybe LinkedIn, Michael Page, what's that called, OPEC.fr, Viadeo. So face-to-face interviewing is the usual culmination of the preliminary recruiting done through the internet. Afterwards, like once you're done through that, the screening process, you come face-to-face with the manager or the HR guy. So with respect to the role of this, the manager in recruiting, the HR manager charged with filling an open position is seldom very familiar with the job itself. The HR guy knows how to recruit, but you should have the company, the department manager or people there to also interview. Someone has to tell this person what the position really entails and what things to look out or watch out for. Only the positions managers or supervisors can do this. They can tell them what to really expect, what sort of pay, what sort of career, and what sort of environment. So the recruiting yield pyramid is based on experience and solid recruiting keeping. Okay, I will see this. I'll show this to you in a while. Here we go. This is the recruiting yield pyramid. Okay, wow, I'm only down 23 minutes. I was hoping I don't have to exceed 30 to 35 minutes. Okay, this is what do you call it? A very simple funnel idea. They call it a pyramid. I can just call it a funnel if you turn it upside down. So let's use the red marker. For example, let's say we open up a position initially on websites or the newspaper, and we find out that 1,200 leads were generated for this position. We were supposed to hire around 50 people for this position, but we got 1,200. So we got 6-to-1 candidate positions, meaning 6 people for one position. Now we got to start the candidates to be invited for maybe, let's say, a test to screen them out, or even for, when we ask them to come over for the test, or sort of maybe even I would say for a test interview or so, we found that the ratio is 4-to-3 because only 200 people showed up, or we called only 200 out of the 1,200 because they were the most suitable candidate. Out of them, let's say we only were able to interview 150. Oh, let me change the color. I thought it was a red. Yeah, 150. And out of the 150, we made offers to 100 of them because we thought they were suitable, and we'll wait for their answer. And some we were hoping to reject. But At the end of the day, we can only hire maybe around 50 of them, and 50 of them get recruited. So you see, for 50 positions, we required up to 1,200 to 2,000 people. Keeps getting narrowed down. And to be honest, it's nothing new, okay? The recruiting yield payment is based on experience and solid record keeping. In our example, if a company needs 50 entry-level accountants, using this sort of pyramid, it will lead to generate maybe around 1,200 leads or more to fill the requirement. So therefore, again, the firm must generate about 1,200 leads in order to get the most successful candidates. If you generate lower than that, you might have a problem. The pool might be too small to find the best candidate. It's simple probability. The more people come in, the better I would say the better selection process you will have, because you can see a wider variety of talents coming in. So let's talk about now recruitment, know your employment law. Okay, over here, we're going to talk about what's illegals for employers to conspire not to hire each other's employees. For example, there's a case study in the book saying that Apple and Google paid over 400 million to settle a claim alleging they did just that. That, if you worked at Google, you can't come to Apple. We won't hire Google people, and Apple said the same thing to Google. And I think back home in Pakistan, what do you call it? It was same for P&G and Unilever. You couldn't cross hire because if you did, you reveal secrets, but that is illegal. Why not? You're blocking on someone's candidacy just because they work somewhere. That's kind of unfair, anyways. So when you're recruiting employees, first of all, know the law. Okay, what type of people you're recruiting, who you can't hire. Sometimes some people have criminal records too, and they get rejected because of that. Be careful. You can't just refuse someone because they have a criminal record. Maybe they were on probation. Maybe they need that job, and if you do, you could get sued for refusing them. Happens also if you're discriminatory towards a religious person who has of a different religion, different ethnicity, or maybe an immigration status. So knowing the law, who you can and cannot recruit, is very beneficial to you. For example, let's say you work in a hard hat area environment, so children can be in that area. I wouldn't say children, let's say people with less than 5 years of experience cannot work on an oil rig. Okay, that is necessary because working there is very dangerous. People with certain backgrounds are required. For example, if you're a doctor and you come with an engineering degree, I mean, come on, man, let's just get straight to the point. Okay, you don't match the job requirements, you're refused. You can't say, why did they refuse me? I am right for the job. No, you're not. Okay, so these types of shenanigans do happen. So another part is the role of the supervisor. Okay, what supervisor here doesn't mean just a manager, it means your manager and who supervises your work. So live and staff cooperation in recruitment is essential. The human resource manager charged with filling an open position is seldom and sometimes not very familiar with the job itself. So you need the supervisor or the team to explain to you what sort of job requirements and tasks are and that have to be fulfilled. So for example, the recruiter will want to know from the supervisor what job really entails and the specification. When they were recruiting over here in France, when I did my first job, they specifically mentioned that they don't want a programmer, they want someone to do business. I mean, as I have to be a business person for them. I have to talk to customers, I have to negotiate with customers, I have to maybe even charm them a bit, but it had nothing to do with programming. And that's when I had a little bit of a fight with them. I said, when you recruited me, you didn't explain the job well enough to me. You said, we need people to talk to customers, and that was it. And I asked you 2 or 3 times, what does the job entail? What's my career ladder? And afterward, you put me into programming, and I don't understand why. That's when I, left the company as well. So it's very important that the HR guy who's recruiting you explains it to you. So that was something bad for me. But when I joined a school over here at ABS, they told me exactly what is required of me. For example, I have to fill out the attendance sheets, and I'm responsible for depositing them. I'm supposed to check, given the midterms and final exams at an appropriate date, collect them, correct them, give them back. Everything was clearly explained to me because they already have other teachers and they're filling out a position. Okay, moving ahead. Okay. Number 3, name and describe the main internal sources of candidates. What's this, by the way? Aha, I thought it was something important. Okay, recruiting typically begins to mind. I think of things like LinkedIn and OPEC.fr, Viadeo, Michael Page, Monster.com. Monster.com was very famous for IT related jobs as well. There are many others. So employment agencies you can go to, like in France, we have Pôle Emploi for which is government related. We have Manpower, Randstad for interim jobs, and of course many others. Water's good. You can give out classified ads on different places. For example, young people like you guys, if you're looking for nanny jobs, you can go to Fusac, FUSAC.fr, French USA Connection, and you can find a lot of English nanny jobs over there. So in other words, current employers or hiring firms within is often the best source of candidates. Even within the company, you collect CVs, and you can create let's say a database of CVs and ask everyone to update their CVs every year if they've added a new skill, if they've added or upgraded their education. That way, that could be very good for you because you'll reduce cost of recruiting someone from the outside, inducting them again, training them again, and then giving them everything they require in terms of, let's say, computer, desk, a room. Whereas hiring internally, you eliminate all those things. All right, I'm moving ahead. Oh boy, I think I'm brushing this. I shouldn't brush this. It's not fair, but I really have a little choice on the video took forever to process, and sometimes technology cannot be reliable, but who cares? It's going to work out sooner or later. Anyways, uh, here's some internal source of candidates. We can say when I was working in the bank, they had their own intranet, which was not accessible, of course, by the extranet. But in that, they had the human resource management system, which kept on posting new jobs. And also, you received emails. Everyone received an email. Let's say if a department created new jobs and they wanted people, it would be circulated immediately within that day to everyone. And if positions are not filled up within 1-2 weeks or so, they would repeat that process for at least 1 month, because then they will, if they are unable to fill that position on the internally, they would have to post it publicly for external recruitment, meaning they can get candidates on the outside. This was in a way to reduce cost, once again, of induction and training, but banks were forced to publicize this after 1 month because of central bank rules. Okay, so in a perfect world, the employer will adhere to formal internal recruitment policy. The procedures, these typically rely heavily on job postings and on the company's skills inventories. A job posting simply means publicizing the open jobs to employees, usually by literally posting it on company intranets or bulletin boards or by emails. Okie dokie. Moving ahead. Okay. Should I continue? Yeah, no, fine. Discuss the workforce planning method you would use to improve employee engagement. All right, this is not so difficult. In fact, there are more than one way to skin a cat. But firms can't always get all the employees they need from the current staff. Okay, that's just normal. Sometimes you don't have that sort of skill set that exists in your society. That skill set doesn't sort of exist in your company or even close to you. Take, for example, in my country, a lot of doctors go to the US and UK, mainly to the US, to learn new surgical techniques, and then they bring it back to Pakistan. So for them, or even hospitals, local hospitals try to recruit American Pakistani doctors because they feel they're more skilled, they have access to better technology, better information, better procedures, and so on and so forth. So we'll look at these firms, look at the sources firms use to find outside candidates in the following slide. Okay, for example, sorry, I just blacked out a bit. Many employers do encourage internal recruiting on the reasonable assumption that, doing to improve employee engagement. But, to be honest, the best thing to do is what we call promotion from within, which is this part. Promotion within is when you try to train your own employees to become better backup. A manager interested in fostering his or her employees' engagement can draw several useful guidelines from FedEx promotion from within system, okay, Federal Express. They show genuine interest in your employers' career aspirations, such as what do you want to do, what do you see yourself in 5 years, what sort of skill set do you want to acquire, do you want to manage a team, do you want to manage a whole division, and so on and so forth, and or do you want to be part of communications, do you want to be part of finance, treasury, whatsoever department that you want to be in. So they kind of map that out for them, and then they provide career-oriented appraisals. An appraisal is basically just your performance review, but an appraisal is more of giving you, I wouldn't say giving you, assigning a monetary value to your skill set and your experience. But this will be related to your career, where you want to take that path. And let's say if you want to step further into finance or go into treasury, or I would say you want to go into maybe from finance to accounting, or you want to move from finance into investments. Therefore, they will start to appraise you on those things. And they say maybe you should do this sort of training, maybe you should take this sort of class, maybe you should work for this sort of department. So they see that their employees have access to that sort of training they need to develop themselves. Okay, once they do have that access, it starts to balance the desire to keep your employees with the benefits of helping them learn, of course, learn from what their training, learn from their environment, learn from their challenges, and apply those to other positions in the company. Okay, so it's like becoming a mentor for your employee, and which is very, very popular nowadays in good companies. Becoming a mentor, it also means that you will stick around, but when you stick around and then you create a backup, you are generally creating a leadership position for yourself as well, because when you move away, that person can take charge. And not just talking about retirement or moving to another company, but people that speak about your managerial skills. And in HR, we try to develop that sort of philosophy that every manager should try to train their people to become backups of themselves, okay, in every way possible. For example, my this manager in my work, he used to have just one post-it, or I would say on his cubicle, nothing else, just one laptop, one phone, and one post-it. On that post-it, he had on his cubicle, it said, always hire people smarter than you. And I said, why do you say that? He's like, listen, I am an MIS guy, okay? My team is far superior to me in any MIS and Excel, Access, SQL, and data and everything. And because of that, I can manage them better because I can trust them. And if I'm not around, I can trust them to deliver the reports to any sort of management when required. So I built that sort of team based on, creating backups of each other. And that's a very smart move. So he said when he will get promoted, that means someone from below him will also get promoted. And that's how you create a chain of command as well. I'm like, oh, that is smart. So if someone from below gets promoted, he gets pushed up automatically too. That means succession planning is immediate and very effective. And that is the ideology behind also recruitment and selection as well. I think the next slide is kind of finished. Yeah, okay, there's no next slide after that. Okay, so thank you for watching this slide. There is no assignment for this week and the next week. Next week is your spring break, so I don't want to torture you guys. The week after, when we have an online session, there will be a case study or sort of some exercise for you to do, and then another one, and finally we will have one major project, and that's about it. So I'm going to upload this on Become for you guys, and and you can share with each other. I also know to upload the previous slides as well, the first and second ones in separate folders. So currently, some students were asking me about, what about the first two assignments? Listen, chapter number 1 that we did, or the first session, I wasn't there because my brother passed away. That assignment is just class participation. The second one was not mandatory. That was also like class participation. The reason is a lot of people were not on board and they hadn't met me. The third time, only half the class showed up, okay, because the other half went to, I would say, their class of business law. So I will actually see all of you guys this Friday, which is, I don't know, what is it, 14th, 15th, March, whatever. Okay, so I'll see you guys then, and then we will decide on other works to do. Right now, you guys can just chill, enjoy your midterm exams that you have for other classes, and, bale, have fun, guys. Bye.